Hello everyone, Antique Alien here, and you may notice that this is not Minecraft. This is Kerbal Space Program. Now, this is a fairly old game that is basically a huge simulation about the development of rocketry. It sounds simple, it's not really. And because I seem to enjoy, pain, I have downloaded a couple of mods. It's called RSS and RP-1. Now, some of y'all who play this may have heard of it, but for those who haven't, it is basically the real solar system and real progression. That's what RSS means, real solar system, and RP1 means real progression 1. And it makes it so much harder, but so much more interesting to play the game. Now, let's start a game, shall we? And because we're, starting this, let's start a new one. Let's call it Antique Alien. We're going to be doing career, and for a flag, let's see, is there a NASA one? Gotta love NASA. Yes, NASA. Because we are going as NASA. Alright, let's start this. So, first thing that happens is that we get a whole bunch of, settings we have to fix. So, we've also got several, statistics we have to keep track of. First off is our astronauts. They retire. And we are going to need to keep an eye on that. So, I don't really care right now, but it's good to know. Also, let's close that. We need to figure out where we're going to be starting. We have to switch in the tracking station to where our launch site is going to be. So let's open up the tracking station, which is this here. It's kind of hard to see, and probably the compression algorithm's not helping. But this is at night, so we'll brighten up eventually. Don't worry. But I opened up the tracking station, and from there we'll be able to pick where our launch site is. Got it. Minimize that. So let's take a look, shall we? We've got stuff all over the world, but there's one right here. U.S. White Sands. Now, I've been to White Sands. It's an amazing place. It's got these great gypsum dunes, and it looks magnificent. If I remember, I'll place a picture up, and if I don't, I'm very sorry. I'll probably drop one for y'all in a bit. But let's go here and leave facility. Now that we're here, let's spend an upgrade point so we can actually start building and launching rockets. Now, if you look around, you can see the great white dunes behind us. Let me move that. That's the gypsum. But now let's check out our upgrades. One of the special things about this mod pack is that you've got what's it called? You've got to upgrade and build up your research and also your construction. So we're here. Let's add a point. Now we're 1.1 build points per second. And every time we try building something, it costs so many build points. I'm not sure exactly. It'll tell us. But yeah. Now we have to go here. Mission control. These are our contracts. Now, for those who don't know, these are basically quests for us to complete. We get resources, money mostly, and some, fame. That's it. As you can see up here, we got our fame bar, our money, and then our science. And this will give us extra money and money on completion, as well as some fame. And if we fail to do it within the time frame, we fail. Now, this one does not appear to have any sort of time frame. If it says it expires, that just means that we won't be able to grab it after this. So let's accept this contract. Now, let's go to the vehicle assembly build. Alright, we've got ourselves the vehicle assembly build. Now, one of the big things is that it takes time for things to build. Also, there's a chance for engines to fail on launch, which is how it actually is. I mean, during the beginning of the space race, rockets exploded if you just looked at them wrong. It was crazy. But we've got ourselves what are known as pods. These are basically the control areas, how we control the rocket. What we're going to be using is the Aerobee Sounding Rocket Telemetry Unit. Now I zoom in here. This doesn't look like much, and it's not much, but it does give us some options. First off, this is very basic, but it does allow us to do science. Because the way science works, at least in this mod pack, is it takes time to complete science. The longer you are in a certain biome, the longer you are doing stuff, the more science you get. Now, let's actually get some fuel tanks in. These use procedural. You can see it. It's right here next to my mouse. You sound it out. But it allows us to control all the shapes and stuff for these rockets. Like for this one, we can make it as long as we want, make it the same diameter as the telemetry unit. Now, let's add an engine real quick. We're going to be using the Aerobee, as you can see here. Let me compact this, get it, smaller. The Aerobee. It's very light, and as you can see with that, it's got some good stats. Now, the main things we want to look at are the ISP, which is right here, the thrust, and whether it's subject to ullage. Also, we need to know whether it's pressure fed and ignition. So basically, this entire section up here is very important. We also want to know how long it burns and what it burns. Does that make sense? So we know what to fuel this with. So let's grab this Aerobee and stick it on the end. There we are. Now, down here you can see the rocket. This is our staging. That means when we're launching, this shows what comes first and what comes next. Before we do that, we need to fill this up with fuel. Because it's a pressure-fed engine, we need to make sure this is a high-pressure tank. And then tank UI, close that. Let's first make sure that they realize they're connected to each other. And there we are. You can fill this up with fuel. Now, you can see up here, you uncompact this. This shows how much delta V. That's basically the distance it could travel. Basically, it's not exact, but it gives us a good idea of how much power does this rocket have and how far will it be able to go. I could get into the math of how it works, but y'all don't care. If you guys are interested, let me know. I'll be happy to explain it. But suffice to say, that's pretty good. But one of the problems is, when this is launching, we have no way of controlling it. For the one thing, this brain is not very strong. It does not have the ability to control the engines. Second off, this engine can't swivel around to control it, and we don't have fins. So, yeah, this thing, we ignite it, and then just stuff happens. We won't be able to control it at all. So what we need to do is, first off, add some aerodynamics. Now, procedural wings, if I remember correctly, are a huge pain. So I may time-lapse this bit if it's, extra finicky. Alright, we've got ourselves our first little rocket. Now, this thing is tiny, and it probably won't be able to get up very far. But do you know what it does do? It gives us data, and that is one of the more important things. It gives us data on how the rocket engines work. Because if we take a look at this, we click the middle button, you can see down on the left, there is a ignition chance. What chance will it be that it will ignite and launch? And there is also the reliability, which is up a little bit, which gives us the chance that it will not, flame out or do something bad along the way. And the more we work this engine, the more times we launch it, the better the chances that it will actually launch. That's the way it worked in real life as well. So yeah, we want to test this engine. Also, it'll give us a little bit of data. Speaking of which, if we come down here to the science, we can add, a thermometer. Stick that on. We only need one. And allow that to start running. When we click this, that means it's waiting. As soon as it's in an area that it can take data, it will. Finally, we want to be able to retrieve this rocket in order to get extra science. So let's go down here to parachutes. This is way too big. Radial. Yeah, this thing is rather big, but you know what? Toggle snap. There we are. Just seeing stuff. Nope, alright, that's not what we want. What we want is this guy, I think. Or this guy. Yeah, this guy's smaller. Go with this guy. There we are. Close enough. Probably doesn't look the best, but this is our first rocket. Also, let's take a look at this from down below. If you look at the fins, you can see that they are tilted slightly. This is known as spin stabilization, and it was used on an awful lot of early rockets. Because of gyroscopic effects, if you spin something like a bullet, it flies a lot straighter. And that's why rifling was so important. It made the bullets fly farther and fly straighter. We're doing this a bit on this rocket, so it will go up higher and stay more stable, even with this big weight on the side. Actually, you know what? We're going to get rid of this because we don't need it for right now. This is going to be a cheap little rocket, and we just want to be able to launch it and get some data on the arrow beam. Also, let's see if there's any more science we can collect. For example, there is a barometer. Nice. Now, early sounding rockets, which is what this is, by the way, it's a sounding rocket, were often used for getting, temperature, barometer, just measuring the atmosphere, which is what this thing will do. We're also going to be collecting telemetry data, which is how the rocket flies. It gives us, practice launching rockets, in essence. Alright, let's simulate this. Now, the simulation allows us to launch a rocket and practice it without actually wasting the resources. Because with this, unless there is some sort of kraken, as it's called, or bug in the game, I will not be resetting launches. Everything will have to roll as it goes. Does that make sense? Alright. Now, normally we'd be able to use RCS or control thrusters and SAS or stabilization. Because we've got such a stupid little rocket brain here, we can do neither. So all we can do is put the throttle full and then press spacebar to ignite it. As you can see, it's starting to spin, but not quite enough. Our fins are not quite strong enough. But hey, it's actually stabilizing a bit more. This is not bad, actually. Not great, but not bad. And it's up. Yep. Because you're spinning so much, there was no ullage or fuel next to the engine for it to pump in, so the pumps cannot, grab it. But we're still going up, so let's keep an eye on these. not great. I think I want to add a bit longer fins. So let's do that. First off, revert flight to vehicle assembly. Because this is a simulation, I can do that. Otherwise, I wouldn't. Alright, now let's zoom in here. Almost doubling the size. Now let's simulate this again. Alright, full thrust. Press spacebar to ignite, and we're off. As you can see, we're spinning a lot faster now. Oh, we're getting a little bit violent, some shaking, and we spun out. See, some of our fins were damaged. It was just, a nasty thing. But you know what? We're going very high. And that's really good, honestly. Because we can't really control this, this is going to be a bit of a problem until we get better avionics, it's called. Oh, we should have had that running from the beginning. But we're not going very high, and now we're going down. So let's just, revert flight. Revert to vehicle assembly. I'm thinking we're actually going to need to lessen the angle of the fins, so that way they don't grip as much. See if that works. There we are. Let's try that. As you can see, building this is, a lot of trial and error. And then if we continue to do this, I'll probably skip these a lot. But because this is the first one, I wanted to show you what exactly we are up to here. Building takes a long time, even for as simple as a rocket as this. Because one of the things is, it costs a lot of money to build rockets. And it costs a lot of time. Alright, full throttle. This again. Starting to spin stabilize. Not bad, not bad. We're still stable, we're still spinning, and this will eventually cause us to spin out. But our hope is that we burn up enough fuel and get high enough that we get up, and there go our fins. Yeah, we are still spinning out quite a lot. But we're getting a lot higher, you can see. Up here we're at 10,000 meters. Honestly, I think this is pretty good for a first rocket. We're going to make much more powerful rockets later on, but this is not bad for a first one. Now, check our telemetry. We're not collecting any science yet, but if we go high enough, we will. And besides, us just launching a rocket is going to get us a bunch of resources and stuff like that. Now we're falling down. Let's just revert flight, revert to vehicle assembly. Now for the most important part, naming the rocket. I always enjoy naming rockets after birds. Because this is a little one, I think I'm going to call this Chaffinch 1. So the first edition of the Chaffinch. Alright, now for some details about the mod. First things first, we're going to need to tool. Tooling is where you basically build the tools required to make these shapes of parts. And we're going to need to tool both the nose cone, and the procedural tank. As you can see, the change in cost for tooling is huge, from 73 down to 2. Because we're hopefully going to be launching a fair chunk of these, or at least similar types, we're going to want to tool these, and then if they're tooled, they're a lot cheaper to build in the long term. So let's just check. If we look down here, we can see what it would cost normally, and we preview, it only costs 45 versus 130. Yes, it has a huge initial cost, but I believe in the long term it'll be worth it. So let's tool it all. Then purchase all toolings. Then we can close this. Now we open up this. Show, hide, build list, plans, vessels. Excuse me. Shoot. Alright, so after a bunch of faffing about and, trying to remember how to do this, I found it. During this, everything went small. No idea why. It's a bug in the game. It's a kraken. Moving on. But let's add this to... let's build this. So we need to unlock a bunch of different parts, which means we can use them in the future. So it costs 4 funds? Yeah, I can spare that. Alright. And we added it to the build list. Now let's hop on out of here. And let's take a look at what it will take. How long? So let's go to, what's that? Upgrades. So what's that? Vessels. That takes 62 days. Now, what we can do is spend 20,000 funds and get upgrade point. I'm going to do that. And then in the VAB, add some to the build speed. Now when we close this, you can see it'll take 54 days to build the entire thing. Instead of, what was it, 62? Which is, not bad. A lot better. But let's actually build an airplane for right now. I'm not very good with this, so, bear with me. And then, from there, we'll warp to when the Chaffinch 1 is done. Alright, just got finished building the an airplane, as you probably will see in that little time lapse. Now, let's take a look at what's being built. The airline, which is going to get built after the Chaffinch one, and then there's the Chaffinch. Now, I know this wouldn't be a proper video without at least one launch, so let's rock and roll. Let's warp 2. Take 54 days, and we'll probably use up a bunch of our money. But you know what? We should be able to get a bunch of stuff from it. Alright, now we need to roll it out to the launch pad. This will take about 7 hours, it says. So, warp to complete. There it is. Alright, let's warp to the next morning so we, have some light to see things by. Alright, now, let's launch. Alright. This is probably not going to go great, but you know what? Running. We just need to get this off the ground. So, Z, full throttle. 3, 2, 1. And that's the end of that rocket engine. We managed to use up maybe 2/3 of our fuel, as you can see down here. But we are getting nice and high. Any science from this? Not a whole lot. But we can time warp it so we go even faster. Oh. I know. And now we're going down. So I'm going to range safety it, which basically means we blow it up. Yes. No more rocket. Let's go to the Space Center and see what our rewards are. Now, if you remember correctly, we had about 27,000 funds beforehand. So let's see how much we have now. Alright, take a look up here. We're at 35,000. Not bad. So let's see what we need to do for the next one. Alright, for this, we need to launch an uncrewed sounding rocket 70 kilometers into the atmosphere. That seems pretty easy. And the rest of these, yeah, it's not going to happen for a while. Let's just take that, accept it, and that's what we're going to be doing next time. Let's double check our active thing. So, yeah, we'll be getting to that next time. Now, this is Antique Alien. I hope you have yourself a nice day, and I'll see you later. Bye.